Are you like the woman in the video, easily distracted? Maybe you've been all in and fully committed unto God, but just like her, you can become distracted at times. Has anybody ever prayed and then while you were praying, you started putting together your grocery list? Has anybody started praying, but then you checked your inbox? Or maybe you were working with your kids doing homework and then you thought that your phone rang, and then when you lifted it up, you realized nobody called you at all. I'm talking about distractions, and all of us have distractions. And we've been in this series entitled All In, and we're talking about how to fully be committed, fully surrendered to Jesus. But what I realized is you can do that for a week. You can do that for a month. You can actually be fully committed for a year. But what happens is distractions. Let me put it this way. Life happens. And life happens, and although we said we were committed, our commitments mean nothing if we don't continue to be all in despite of what we see. And in our text today in Matthew, we see this man by the name of Peter. He was a follower of Jesus, and he does the impossible. He starts to walk on water. Can you imagine that? But then he starts to sink. Why? Because he becomes distracted. How many people here today, right now, are distracted? Thinking about what you got to do when you go home, thinking about that bill on the table, thinking about that sickness going on. And it's hard for us to even focus because we're so distracted. So today, I want to talk about distractions because I believe that is the major thing that keeps us from going all in when it comes to Jesus. Matthew chapter 14, and I'm almost taking my seat. Matthew 14. Someone truthfully said, Daddy, what does that mean when a preacher says taking your seat? Absolutely nothing. I'm about to take my seat, everybody. Matthew 14 says this: immediately Jesus made the disciples get into the boat and go on ahead of him to the other side. While he dismissed the crowd, after he dismissed them, he went up on a mountainside by himself to pray. Later that night, Jesus was there alone. I want you to peep what's going on right now because this is after Jesus feeds the 5,000. Right? But it was women and children there, so it was probably 15,000 people that Jesus fed. So he hits up his boy Phil and says, hey, Philip, we got to feed these people, man. Where we going to feed them at? Why did he ask Philip? Because this was his hometown. That's like if I'm going to your spot, you should tell me where to eat at. And he says, we ain't got no money. And then this little boy with a little snack gives what he has to Jesus. This is a whole nother sermon, but let me just give this real quick. If you give Jesus the little that you have, he'll end up multiplying it and it will be more than enough. But by faith, he had to give what he had to Jesus. This Long John Silver snack pack. He gave it to Jesus and he multiplied it. And the text says that there was leftovers there. So when Jesus blesses you, he doesn't bless you just to get by. He blesses you more than enough. And Jesus, he says this, he says, now go pick up the leftovers. He tells his disciples as if they're at a family reunion, a cookout at Belle Isle, and get the aluminum foil. And I want you to pick up all the leftovers. Why? Because God doesn't like things to be wasted. If he doesn't like food to be wasted, he doesn't like potential to be wasted. If he cares about food not being wasted, then he cares about your life not being wasted. And so Jesus, he realizes there were people there, not for him. There were people there just to get something to eat. And that's why Jesus says, you must drink my blood and eat my flesh, or you have no parts of me. And what happened? The 5,000 just scattered, went down to 12 real quick. They said, this is a hard teaching. Why? They were after what Jesus could offer, but they didn't want him. I'm not stupid. I know most of you are here for the bounce houses after service. But while you're here for the next 15 minutes, I'm going to talk about him. I'm going to talk about Jesus. And let me just say it at the beginning of the message. We want you to come back. We want you to be all in to what God is doing through you and in this church, because I believe God is doing something awesome here. Imagine this right here, barely a seat in the house. If every single person just brought one person next week and came back, we'd have to move locations. And we only been here about 6 weeks, but Jesus now pulled away and started to pray. He got away from everybody. Jesus wasn't trying to build a crowd. He was trying to get devoted followers. He pulls away and prays. And if Jesus needed a prayer life, then you and I need a prayer life. He got away by himself and started to pray. Why? Because a problem was about to happen. Now you're like me. We pray after the problem. Jesus prayed before the problem. Don't wait till the problem happens to pray. And the reason why Jesus can maintain and handle things because he prayed before things happen. That's why I just believe when you wake up in the morning, if you got 5 minutes, you need to pray. You want to know why? Because of your boss, because of that coworker that you don't like. And you say, Jesus, they getting on my nerves. But if you would have prayed, you would have been ready for it. And so Jesus prayed before the problem. And then all of a sudden, look at verse 24. It says, and the boat was already a considerable distance from the land, buffeted. That word buffeted means tortured, distressed, harassed. These disciples now are in the boat and a storm is coming. Now, it can't just be an average storm because they're fishermen, but this storm rocked them. So this was a little bit different. And it said the waves began to be aggressive and it was against the boat. And now they got a decision. Are they going to go all in? Because they're halfway to their destination and they could have easily went back. They're halfway to where Jesus wanted them to go, but now they see the wind, distractions, and they could have just went back to shore. Last week we talked about it. We said that you need to get away from the shore because you were created for more. But I wouldn't do right by you if I told you half the story. When you really walk out and do what God has called you to do, storms in your life will happen. Anybody know what I'm talking about? You started going all in, then all of a sudden something happened in your life, and now they're halfway and they got a decision. Should we go back to familiar territory? Should we go back to what makes us comfortable? That's what happens when things in our life don't go the way that we like. What do? We go back to what's normalcy. We go back to safety, security, comfort, and convenience. And now they have a decision. Are we going to keep going forward or are we going to go back? But this is a storm that they couldn't go around. They had to go through. Is there any married people today that can be honest and say, you know what, we've been married, but there's been some storms, some season in our lives where we couldn't go around it. We had to go through. Is there anybody can be honest? You had some financial problems where you couldn't get around it. You had to go through the storm. Is there anybody in here who had a job situation and you realized you had to go through the storm? You couldn't go around the storm. Is there anybody in here that had a sickness in your body that you couldn't go around it? You had to go through it. Does anybody know what I'm talking about today? When God calls you to do something, some storms you can't go around, you got to go right through it. But here's the good news. Jesus would have never put them in the boat if they wouldn't make it to the other side. Oh, that's a word for somebody. No matter what storm you go through, if Jesus called you to it, you will make it to the other side. But he wants to know where you go all in the boat and trust him. This isn't their first storm. You know their first storm. Matthew chapter 8. You remember when Jesus is sleeping at the bottom of the boat, a storm starts to happen. The disciples are shook. So they'll go downstairs and they wake up Jesus. And Jesus like, y'all tripping. What? This little storm? Peace be still. That time, Jesus was in the boat. This storm, Jesus was not in the boat. And sometimes a sign of maturity is when you're going through a storm and it feels like he's not there. Why? Because he can trust you in the storm. There are some storms where it seems like Jesus is right there, but as you grow older, as you mature in the faith, there are going to be some storms and you're like, where is Jesus at? That is not a sign of absence or immaturity. That can be a sign of maturity because he can trust you in the storm. And now they're in a storm and Jesus starts to walk on the very thing that's driving them crazy. Jesus starts to walk on the circumstances that is making them go crazy. Just imagine them in the boat trying to figure it out. And Jesus is like, just walking on water. And he gets to the boat and they're like, is that a ghost? Because sometimes when you're in a storm, you can't recognize them. You don't know if it's really him or not. Have you ever prayed and you're trying to figure out, is that just me or is that him? Like, is this my desire or his desire? There are some storms sometimes where you can be walking with him and you don't know if it's really him. You're trying to figure it out. They saw him, but it looked like a ghost. This is the first time they saw Jesus and said he looked like a ghost. Why? Because when circumstances and storms happen in your life, sometimes it's hard to make out if it's really him or not. And now they says, is it a ghost? and they could not see him, but Jesus could see them. We may lose sight of him, but he never loses sight of us. Did you hear what I just said? You may lose sight of him, but he'll never lose sight of you. And now they're in this storm and it's a problem and they don't know if they're going to make it. In verse 26, and I'm taking my seat, not really, but look at verse 26. When the disciples saw him walking on the lake, they were terrified. It's a ghost, and they cried out in fear. Why are you hesitant in going all in? What do you feel for? What do you doubt? What are your insecurities? That's the thing that keeps us on the shore, that keeps us on the dock, not willing to step out and do what God has called us to do. Why? Because we don't know what's going to happen. And so Jesus now comes to them, and now they have a decision to make. We can go all in, or we can go all back. Have you ever done that before? You committed something to God, but if you're honest today, we don't keep our commitments. I'm just going to be honest. God, if you do this one thing, I promise you, this one thing, and you didn't keep your end of the bargain at all, but he kept his end of the bargain. And now he comes on the very problem that they have. And then Peter says, Lord, is that you? Is that you? If that's you, then tell me to come to you. If that's really you, I don't know, because we're in a storm. I'm being distracted right now by everything that's going on right now. But if that's really you, tell me to come to you. And Jesus is like, okay, if you're bad enough to ask, come on then. And can you imagine Peter in this moment? Now, this is how you know you're serious about God. Now, this is for the 10% right here. I'm going to be honest. All Jesus says is come. Y'all didn't get it. Is that enough for you to step out on faith? He didn't tell him the details. He didn't tell him if the thing was going to work out. He just said, come. There are some times in your life, God won't give you the details. He'll just tell you to come. And what we want is all the details. We want a roadmap. We want a blueprint. We want a GPS and everything. It doesn't work like that. All he says sometimes in life is come. And now Peter has a decision to get off the boat. You remember last week, if you were here, Jesus got in Peter's boat. But now Peter has to step out of that boat. And now Peter is like, come. He's about to do the impossible. He's about to do something that nobody else has done besides Jesus. This is something crazy. Because when God really calls you to go all in, it'll be something that you don't think you can do. And now Peter is like, whoo, I don't know if I can. I went ziplining on Tuesday, I think it was, with my wife. We went ziplining a little bit. Now I looked at, I think I'm in decent shape. I got to get back Planet Fitness. You know what I'm saying? They charge $15 now for the Black Club, but I'm going to go back. And I looked at the weight requirements. I was right at that boy. Like, okay, so I stepped out on that tightrope. And then they got the little kids behind me. I'm holding the line of little 4-year-olds. They looking at me. Y'all can go ahead. Just go ahead, bro. I got to stretch it out. Go ahead. You wait till everybody gone again. And I'm stepping out. But that first step was so difficult. But when I got that first step and I took that second step, then that third step, you know what I said? Hey, babe, videotape this, videotape. Fronting on the ground. Woo, that was the most likes I got on Instagram. That was hot right there. Why? But if you would have saw that first step, I was nervous. But sometimes you got to step out on faith and do it when you're scared. Sometimes you got to step out when Jesus says to come. And imagine Peter in this moment, he steps out and he's walking on water. He's walking on the very thing that was driving him crazy. He's walking on the thing that had him distracted. And he's walking now, and he's coming to Jesus, and he's walking to him, and then all of a sudden it says that the wind picks up instead of focusing on him. And when the wind picked up, what did he do? He started to sink. Why? Because he was distracted about things that was going on around him. Ooh. You got to understand that some of us, you are walking a good race. You were walking towards Jesus, but things around you started to happen and you got distracted and your whole life started to sink. But you know what? Most people, they get on Peter. Peter's my hero of the story. Most people say, you got to keep your eyes on Jesus. You would have never sink. I didn't come to make fun of Peter because I'm Peter. Because there's been times where I was focused on God and you got a bill, you got a doctor's notice, your kids drove you crazy, and there were some moments you did start to sink. I'm not coming here to tell you what you're not, but I'm here to say this. At least Peter was the only one that got out the boat. See, people in your life will talk about you because they're not doing anything. At least he had the courage to get out the boat. There was 12 disciples, and the only one that had the courage to do what Jesus said to do was Peter. I'm not talking about you're exceptional around non-believers and people who don't love God. I'm talking about you distinguishing yourself from people who claim to serve the same God that you serve. They were all believers, but he said, I'm going to step out by faith. And some of us in this room need to step out by faith and do what God has called you to do. Stop being fearful. Stop being afraid, because here's the good news, and I'm finished for real, everybody. When Peter stepped out of the boat, even though he was about to sink, he fell right in the arms of Jesus. I'm finished, everybody. But if you're going to fall, at least you'll fall in the arms of Jesus. That's called grace. That's called mercy. And there's been times in my life I wasn't walking on water. I made it where I was because when I fell, Jesus was right there picking me up. Does anybody know what I'm talking about today? That you've walked out by faith and Jesus will pick you up. Has he picked anybody's marriage up? Has he picked anybody's finances up? Has he picked you up when you was low and you was down? Step out by faith and you'll be right in the arms of Jesus. I'm finished. But don't listen to people who aren't willing to step out. Because what people want to do is to get you back in the boat. Because that reminds them they're not going anywhere. But I come today to let you know, when is it going to be your time to step out? And that time is now. And not everyone with you is going to step out. But if you step out, grace is there. And if you step out, mercy is there. Peter stepped out, but Jesus didn't let him drown. You might be sinking, but you haven't drowned yet. That's why you're here. You might be sinking, but Jesus will pick you up. And here's my last point, everybody. If you come out the boat, he'll keep you afloat. If you come out the boat, he'll keep you afloat. It may seem like you're drowning. It may seem like you can't make it, but Jesus will be there to pick you up. Let's pray.